is Viktor. It's not the name on my documents, but it's the only one that matters now. Because who I was before no longer exists. I am not a successful businessman. I am not an investment genius. Nothing I achieved came from merit, effort, or noble sacrifice. What I have today was built with blood, black candles, and words that no one should utter. You might think this is crazy. That's okay, but I'm warning you now. If you keep reading, you'll have to carry this knowledge with you. And once these words enter your mind, they never leave. I was born in Newark, New Jersey, only child to an exhausted mother and a father who disappeared before I learned to speak. My adolescence was spent stacking boxes in a warehouse and, later, selling used books in a second-hand bookstore in the basement of an old building in Trenton. My world was dust, routine, and boredom. And at night I delved into things I shouldn't. Magic, demonology, ancient grimoires. It was a bottomless pit, and I descended one step with each page. Everything changed on a rainy Tuesday night. I was making a routine delivery of donated books to a forgotten library in downtown Salem, Massachusetts. A damp, dimly lit basement with shelves as old as the words on them. It was there, between two moldy philosophy books and a torn edition of The Sorrows of Young Werther, that I found it. The book. The cover was black, without a title. It smelled of old wood and something else. Acidic. When I opened it, on the first page, there was a handwritten inscription. Clavicula Salomonis Ars Goetia. I stopped breathing for a moment. The Goetia. Until then, I only knew it from vague mentions in occult forums and PDFs of dubious origin. But that copy, it was physical, ancient, real. The pages were covered with seals, names, symbols, and meticulous instructions. 72 names, 72 kings, dukes, princes of hell, each with a power, each with a price. I stayed until the library closed, reading it, completely mesmerized. And when the librarian turned off the lights, I hid the book inside my coat. I know, it was theft. But who would let something like that rot in the dark? In the following weeks, it consumed my life. I would come home and spend hours copying seals, studying the conjurations in Latin, learning the symbols, memorizing the warnings. The book didn't ask for faith, it asked for precision. Do not fear, but do not bow. He who invokes must command. He who doubts will be consumed. That was the tone, and for some reason I felt that this was for me. My first target was Bune, one of the lesser demons, as the book called them. He promised quick fortune, nothing grandiose, but enough to test if it was real. I prepared everything as instructed, circle of protection drawn with ritual chalk. Black candle in the north, white in the south, seal of Bune drawn by hand on virgin paper with charcoal ink. Copal incense and absolute silence. I waited for dawn, turned off my cell phone, held my breath, and I began to recite. The words were ancient. They came out of my mouth with a metallic taste. In the middle of the ritual, I felt the air change. It got colder, denser. One of the candles went out by itself. Something passed by the side of the room. I didn't see it, but I felt it. I continued, my voice steady, the words exact. The bearer of the seal summons you, Bune. Come under command. Bring your gift. Silence. Long. Heavy. I thought it hadn't worked. I extinguished the candles, destroyed the seal, and went to sleep with my heart pounding. I didn't sleep well that night. I dreamed of golden eyes in the dark, with teeth that didn't belong to any human mouth. But it was only the next day that I realized. In the pocket of an old coat, I found $300 in crumpled bills, out of nowhere. I swear by everything, that pocket had been empty for years. On the same day, I received a call from an acquaintance offering a temporary gig as a curatorial assistant at an art gallery in Manhattan. Me? A guy who barely knew how to distinguish Monet from a grocery coupon? I accepted, of course, and that's where it all really began. That first ritual with Bune was just a test, right? A chance to prove if it was real. But after the money appeared and the surreal vacancy at the gallery fell into my lap, I knew. It wasn't coincidence. It was a response. The book said that demons could act subtly, sometimes like a small wave pulling you to the bottom of the ocean. But if you followed the trail, sooner or later, they would drag you to places where the light doesn't reach. I began to study the other names more seriously. This time I wanted something bigger. My goals were no longer just to escape poverty. I wanted to ascend. Power, influence, status. The name that appeared as a whisper between the pages was Gusion. The Goetia said that he granted clear answers, foresight, and luck with money. He was called the one who reveals what is hidden. Perfect. But the ritual had to be done at dawn. An important detail, light and darkness crossing. I followed each step to the letter. Seal engraved by hand, this time on rawhide. Circle made with ritual chalk, reinforced with black salt. Myrrh incense burning until the smoke took shape. A glass of water from the Hudson, as instructed by the adaptation for the urban environment. No witnesses. At 5:27 in the morning, I began to recite. The first phrase came out trembling. The second, more firm. On the third, the air changed. This time, he responded, not with words, not with form, but with presence. I felt something enter the room like a smell. No, like a weight. The atmosphere became so dense that it seemed difficult even to breathe. My hands trembled, but I continued. Gusion, show me the way. Bring me the hidden paths. Make me visible in the eyes of those who decide. Something whispered in my ear, cold, raspy, but the mouth that spoke was not there. The ritual lasted 11 minutes. In the end, I felt as if something had been marked on me, as if an invisible seal had been drawn on my skin. There was no fear, just adrenaline and a silent certainty. The contract was accepted. In the following week, everything began to change. Not slowly, not in whispers, in waves. I received an unexpected proposal to assume financial control of the gallery where I had barely learned to hang paintings. The owner said that I inspired confidence, that my presence calmed investors. I laughed inwardly. I didn't even know how to do a balance sheet, but I accepted. In the same month, a well-known collector offered me a partnership in a company that imported ancient artifacts. He said that my aura matched the company's philosophy. Me? Aura? I knew what it was. Gusion was working, and I was beginning to understand how this game was played. With the money starting to flow, I left the basement in Newark and moved to a luxury apartment in Tribeca. I bought a vintage Mercedes. I began to attend rooftop parties and dinners with people who wouldn't have looked me in the face 6 months earlier. And the best part, they came to me. There was only one problem. When the party was over, and I went home, alone, in the dark, I felt like I wasn't alone. It started slowly, a reflection out of place in the elevator mirror, the hallway light flickering when I passed, a recurring dream with white eyes watching me from the end of an endless corridor. Then, more clearly, one night, lying in bed, I heard 3 knocks on the window glass, on the 25th floor. I went there thinking it was paranoia, but there was something written on the glass, in frozen breath. "We are listening to you." It was at that moment that I understood. They weren't just helping me, they were watching me. The Goetia is clear. Each ritual strengthens the bond. You call them, and they answer. But with each call, the chain tightens. The price hasn't come yet, but it's coming. And honestly, I don't care. Because now, I'm no longer asking for power. I'm collecting it. The rituals with Bune and Gusion opened the first doors. Quick gains, surreal opportunities, influence. But they also brought a silent certainty. I was no longer dealing with superstition. It was real, and it was dangerous. I thought I was in control, but things started to change. The more the rituals worked, the more I wanted. It was no longer about surviving or improving my life. It was about scaling, dominating, controlling. The book said that some pacts could be made in exchange for permanent commitments. Belial was one of them. The demon of kings, of status, of political and social power, one of the most powerful in the Goetia. The promise was clear. To those who make a pact with Belial, the loyalty of the powerful, the respect of the rich, and the dominion over those who command will be given. And the price? My soul, just like that. The Belial ritual was not like the others. It required pure silver, consecrated with blood, black candles in a closed circle, total silence, and, most importantly, a definitive decision, a pact, a bond, no turning back. On the appointed night, I waited for the full moon to rise over New York. I turned everything off. Total isolation. The apartment seemed to breathe on its own, as if it knew what was going to happen. I drew the circle. I lit the candles. I left the seal of Belial in the center, and I put a drop of my blood on it. The book said that blood marked acceptance, that the entity did not act without consent. I recited the words. Latin did not seem like a dead language that night. It vibrated. I felt the presence before the last word. The entire room became heavy. The gravity seemed wrong. The candles trembled without wind. The air smelled of iron and wet earth. And then he spoke, not with an audible voice, but inside my head, like an idea that wasn't mine, like a sound whispered between the bones. Do you accept the weight of the name? Do you offer your voice, your body, and your image to carry the seal? I didn't hesitate. Yes. Then you will be crowned. But you will never forget the throne from where the power came. That same night I dreamed of a room without windows, where everyone wore golden masks. They called me by my name, a name that was not Viktor, and they gave me a silver key. When I woke up, my throat hurt as if I had screamed for hours. In the days that followed, everything exploded. Businessmen started looking for me, politicians, investors, high-ranking people wanting my advice. My presence caused something in people. Convincing them was easy. Influencing them, natural. It was as if my voice had a weight that others couldn't ignore. Even the looks changed. With less than 3 months of PACT, I moved to a mansion on the outskirts of Greenwich, Connecticut. Security guards, private events, jet travel. Everyone wanting a piece of the new name that was on the rise. But none of that was the scariest. The scariest was recognizing others like me. There was a group. They never talked about it directly, but we looked at each other differently. I saw in their eyes the same mark that was on me. That absence. As if part of us had been torn off and replaced by something bigger, older. One night, during a private dinner on Long Island, a senator who had never seen me shook my hand and said, "The throne recognizes its heirs. Belial keeps him strong." He smiled and went back to eating, as if he had commented on the weather. I wasn't sleeping well anymore. I started hearing sounds inside the house, even with the guards alert. One day, I saw my reflection watching me, even when I wasn't moving. I started to feel the presences closer. Sometimes I felt invisible fingers touch my shoulder while I was taking a shower. And at night, the candles lit themselves. But still, I continued, because everything that had been promised to me was being delivered, and I was willing to pay the price. After the pact with Belial, reality stopped following normal rules. People said yes to me without knowing why. Closed doors opened even before I knocked, and when I spoke, I saw, I felt, the impact, as if my voice had physical weight. The world was serving me on a silver platter, but I wanted more. I began to notice a hunger that wasn't mine, a hole inside my chest, not of anguish, of desire. And the book offered me the next name, Asmodeus, the demon of lust, of seduction, of obsession, but also of emotional domination. The Goetia warned, to invoke Asmodeus is to strip naked. He not only delivers pleasure, he observes what you will do with it. The ritual was more intimate, more perverse. A seal and a candle weren't enough. It needed raw will, libidinous intention. You had to show that you were willing, that you wanted to manipulate, that you desired more than bodies, souls. I prepared everything on a stifling night in Miami, during a business trip, in quotes really. I reserved the penthouse of a hotel overlooking the sea, mirrors, candles, a circle drawn with wine and black salt. the seal of Asmodeus engraved on polished bone, and an offering, an old photo of someone I loved and who broke my heart. The book said that the memory of a denied desire was the key to opening the portal of true lust. I recited the words, but this time there was no cold, nor darkness. There was heat, the kind of heat that makes your skin crawl, even with the air conditioning on full blast. I felt something move inside me, and then, for the first time, I saw, in the mirror in front of me, a figure appeared behind me. Tall, face covered with a golden mask with 3 faces, one laughing, one crying, and one in fury. It wasn't in the room, only in the reflection, but I felt his breath on my neck. You called me, and I desire you. The ritual ended with the breaking of the mirror, alone. Without impact, it just cracked. And the next day, my life became a magnet. People began to fall in love with me, literally. Clients, colleagues, strangers on the street. A married woman left me a note in my coat pocket with the words, "Do whatever you want with me." A CEO of a media company invited me to a meeting and spent 2 hours confessing things I never wanted to know. And me? At first I resisted, but then I realized. It was part of the pact. Temptation was part of the gift, and I started to accept. Secret parties, hotels with corridors that didn't exist on maps, environments where no one used names, only masks. I began to frequent elite circles that don't appear in magazines, where the powerful exchanged secrets for experiences, and where everyone seemed to know that I had something different. Once, a woman approached me at one of these events. She wore a black satin dress and eyes that looked like mirrors. She introduced herself as Lilith. "You carry the mark of Asmodeus," she said. "We recognize one of our own." She took me to a room where the walls had symbols of the Goetia carved into them. "We are not the only ones," she whispered. "You knew, right? That there is a network, that there are rules, that there is a purpose." She told me that many of the influential people in the world were in PACTS, not for religion, but for strategy. There is no throne that is not surrounded by black candles. After that night, pleasure stopped being a choice. It became routine, part of the game, part of the payment. I had to feed Asmodeus, with desire, with excesses, with the breaking of limits. And he rewarded me. Businesses flowed, stocks soared, people obeyed me with a look. But there was a cost. Sometimes I would wake up sweating, with the feeling that someone was over me, holding me down, penetrating me, not with a body, but with will. Wet dreams with figures that weren't human. They were human parts, fused with symbols, with cat eyes, with mouths that never closed. I started forgetting names, confusing faces, swapping reality with memory, and the worst part, I started to like it. After Belial, after Asmodeus, after everything, my life was the definition of conquest. Mansions in 3 states, invitations to meetings where no one used surnames. My decisions moved companies that didn't even know I existed. But there was an invisible condition being fulfilled all the time. I was no longer me. I started to forget sounds from my childhood, smells from my mother's house, the name of my dog. But I could recite the 72 seals of the Goetia from memory, in Latin, in Enochian, and in other sounds that cannot be written. I started seeing signs. In the bathroom mirror, my image was half a second late to follow me. On my cell phone, calls from impossible numbers like R0000 with a breath on the other end. One night, I received an email with only the title, "You have been noticed," and an image attached, me, sleeping, in my bed, with something on top of me that seemed made of shadows and horns. The others started to disappear. An acquaintance, another initiate, was found floating in the pool, without marks. Another simply disappeared from his penthouse in Manhattan. He left the seal of Paimon drawn on the floor with wine. The payment was coming, and it would come for everyone. One night, at the mansion in Aspen, the candles in the hall lit themselves at 03:33 in the morning. All 72, one for each demon of the Goetia, in the center of the hall, the original book. The one I stole years ago, in Salem, now open, on the last page, where there was a new inscription, written with what appeared to be blood. Viktor, your debt will be honored. Prepare yourself. That night I didn't sleep. I just sat on the edge of the bed with a glass of whiskey and listened to the whispers in the walls. They were happy. They knew. But I didn't run away. Because deep down, I knew from the beginning. This was never about escaping. It was about accepting. Today my life is pure silence. But not the empty silence. The silence that awaits something. I still have the power, the fortune, the control. But I know that every decision, every ritual, every penny I spend is just another installment of a much larger price. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night with a whisper that doesn't leave my head. You are alive because we are still entertained. The PACTS continue. Small rituals to keep the entities satisfied. Symbolic offerings, right words, emotions sacrificed. Once a month, someone around me disappears. Guards, assistants, partnerships, and I never ask, because I already know. I have become what I invoked, a channel, a walking altar. They use me, and I let them. Because in the end, that's what power demands, surrender. Do you think you would have stopped? Been smarter? Closed the book? Returned to a normal life? Maybe, but then you would never have known the taste of the world at your feet. I don't tell this story as a warning. I tell it as an invitation, because I know that, now that you've made it this far, curiosity is already corroding you from within, and the Goetia only needs that, a whisper of curiosity, to start all over again.